April 1965. Fort Worth, Texas. The lobby bar of the Hotel Texas on Main Street, 6 blocks north of the Tarrant County Courthouse, and half a block from the old Westbrook Hotel, whose brick facade has absorbed 60 years of Texas weather without apologizing for it. The bar is quiet at 10:30 on a Tuesday morning. The lobby smells of floor wax and fresh coffee from the breakfast service, and the cut flowers on the concierge desk that someone changes every other day. The light comes through the tall windows along the Main Street side, in long, flat rectangles across the marble floor. A 22-year-old bellhop in a pressed burgundy jacket is carrying a leather suitcase up 3 flights of stairs, because the elevator has been out of service since yesterday morning, and because the guest on the 3rd floor has already said once, in a voice designed to carry through a closed door, that the wait is unacceptable. The suitcase belongs to a man who weighs 320 pounds. He is not carrying it. Here is the story. Edward Marsh, called Eddie by everyone in the Stockyards neighborhood where he grew up, had been working the bellhop floor at the Hotel Texas for 8 months when Carl Braddock arrived. Eddie was 22 years old and carried himself with the quiet economy of a young man who has been doing necessary things in difficult conditions long enough that the doing of them has stopped requiring any expression at all. He had arms that did not match the burgundy jacket, which was a size too small across the shoulders, for the same reason. He had been in Fort Worth since the previous August, which was 4 months after his honorable discharge from the United States Army, which was 14 months after he had arrived in the Central Highlands of Vietnam with the 1st Cavalry Division at the age of 19, and spent those 14 months doing the things that the 1st Cavalry Division was doing in the Central Highlands of Vietnam in 1963 and 1964. Which were not the kinds of things a person discusses in a hotel lobby while carrying a man's suitcase up 3 flights of stairs. He had come back to Fort Worth because it was where he was from, and because his mother was on Hemphill Street, and because the Hotel Texas was hiring, and because the GI Bill money was going to take 6 months to resolve through the Veterans Administration, and he needed to be working while it sorted. He had been offered the overnight desk position and taken the bellhop floor instead, because the floor required movement, and because Eddie Marsh, 14 months out of the Central Highlands, was not yet prepared to sit still for 8 hours in the same room. He was good at the work. Punctual, did not need to be told things twice, had a way of being present in a room without requiring any of the room's attention, which is a skill that takes most people 30 years to develop, and that Eddie had acquired in a context where the alternative was worse than embarrassing. The overnight manager had recommended him for a commendation at the 6-month mark. Eddie had put it in his jacket pocket and carried luggage the next morning at the same speed he had carried it the morning before. Some of you have known someone who came home from something large and went directly to the next necessary thing without stopping to make any announcement about the size of what they had come through. Some of you have been that person. This story is for you. Carl Braddock was billed as the main event in 12 southwestern states and was a specific kind of famous in the specific household that followed professional wrestling in 1965, which was a devoted and enthusiastic household. 320 pounds, 6 feet 2 inches, and a professional villain across every venue, from Oklahoma to the Pacific Coast. He played the character comprehensively, which meant it did not fully stop when he stepped back through the ropes. 11 years of performing contempt for a crowd had given the contempt something of the texture of a habit, the way a thing practiced long enough begins to arrive without being called. He had said 3 things to Eddie Marsh in the first 20 minutes of his arrival that a person who has served 14 months in the Central Highlands of Vietnam should not be required to hear from a man whose professional skill is pretending to inflict damage in front of a paying audience. Eddie had responded to each of them with "yes, sir," and carried whatever needed carrying. He had not changed his expression. He had simply continued. Because continuing was what the job required, and because continuing was, in a more fundamental sense, what Eddie Marsh had been doing since August of 1964, and intended to keep doing. The lobby bar at 10:30 held a bartender and 3 guests and the concierge staff behind the desk, and a man at a corner table who had been there since 9:30 with a coffee cup and a script he had been marking in the margins while he waited for a press luncheon that did not start until noon. The man at the corner table was 6 feet 4 inches and had the look of someone who takes up precisely the amount of space he intends to occupy, and not a square inch more. He had been watching the morning without comment. Braddock caught the reflection of the corner table in the bar mirror. He turned around on the stool. He looked at the man for a moment. Then he said, at a volume calibrated to carry to the bar and the concierge desk and every guest in the lobby who was within range, "You're John Wayne. I thought you would be taller. In the pictures you look like a man who could handle something. In person you look like you spent your whole career on a soundstage learning to stand a certain way. Studio coward. That's what the fighters call your kind. Studio coward." He turned back to the mirror. He picked up his glass. He said to Eddie Marsh's reflection, "Soldier boy, ice." The lobby of the Hotel Texas on Main Street in Fort Worth at 10:30 on a Tuesday morning in April held the bartender, the concierge staff, 3 guests, and a bellhop who had come back through from the 3rd floor and was standing in the middle of the marble floor with ice tongs in one hand. Every person in that lobby had heard both statements. Every one of them understood what had been said, and to whom, and what it meant that neither sentence had been challenged. Not one of them made any sound. The woman at the concierge desk found something to look at below the desk's surface. The bartender polished a glass that was already clean. The man with the newspaper near the window became very focused on the bottom of the page. You know that feeling. The moment when something wrong settles into a room, and the room makes a collective decision to become very interested in whatever is directly in front of it. Where are you watching from? Drop your state in the comments. I want to see how far this story reaches. It was not the studio coward that did it. Wayne had been called worse things in better rooms by more credible people and had not moved from his chair. It was the 2 words said to a 22-year-old veteran standing in the middle of a lobby with ice tongs in his hand while a room full of people examined the floor. Soldier boy. At the corner table, John Wayne set his coffee cup down. He set it down the way a man sets something down when the setting of it is the last quiet thing that is going to happen for a moment. He stood up. The lobby registered this the way a room registers a change in pressure. The people nearest the corner table understood first, because when a man of that size and stillness stands up in a contained space, the people nearest him know before the people farther away. It moved forward through the lobby like a current until everyone, including the bartender and the 3 guests, and the concierge staff, and Carl Braddock, who saw it in the mirror, had turned. Wayne walked from the corner table to the bar at the pace of a man who has decided where he is going and has no uncertainty about the route. He was not hurrying. He moved the way a man moves when he has been moving with physical purpose since a football field in Los Angeles in 1929 and has not stopped since, with the economy of someone for whom movement has always been a working thing rather than a performed one. Braddock watched him come in the mirror and then turned on the stool. Wayne stopped in front of him. He held out his right hand. He said, "Let me shake your hand." It was not a question. It was said quietly enough that the bar heard it, and the concierge desk probably did not. Braddock took the hand because there was no way to decline it in a hotel lobby in front of a bartender and concierge staff and 3 guests and a bellhop, without the declining meaning something worse than the handshake. He closed his 320-pound hand around it. His expression changed at approximately the 1-second mark. Wayne was not squeezing the way a man squeezes to demonstrate effort. He was applying pressure the way a man applies a wrench to something that needs to move, with the full mechanical efficiency of a hand that had been doing physical work for 36 years without apology, and had accumulated in that time a grip that had nothing to do with performance and everything to do with accumulation. It did not feel like a demonstration. It felt like a fact about the nature of the situation that Braddock had not previously been given access to. Braddock's 320 pounds did not move, but his face moved. It rearranged itself in the direction of a man receiving new and significant information about how he has assessed his circumstances. Wayne held the grip for 3 seconds. Then he said, quietly enough that Braddock heard it, and the man on the nearest stool probably heard it, and no one else did. That young man came home from the Central Highlands last year. Turn around and use your real voice. Braddock turned on the stool and looked at Eddie Marsh, who was standing in the middle of the lobby floor with the ice tongs in his right hand, and his face arranged the way it had been arranged since August of 1964, which was without expectation in any particular direction. Braddock said, "I owe you an apology for this morning. Your service is appreciated." And I spoke out of turn. It was not the apology the morning deserved. It was the apology the morning got, which was more than Carl Braddock's 11 years of professional performance had ever suggested was available in him. And it was said out loud in a hotel lobby in Fort Worth, in front of everyone who had decided 4 minutes earlier to look at the floor. Eddie Marsh said, "Thank you, sir." He went and got the ice. Wayne went back to the corner table and found the page in the script and the margin note where he had stopped and continued annotating. The press luncheon started at noon. He was still early. Eddie Marsh gave his notice at the Hotel Texas in December of 1965 when the GI Bill resolved and enrolled in the heating and air conditioning program at Tarrant County Junior College. He was 23 years old. He graduated in 18 months. He took a technician position with a contractor on the east side of Fort Worth and worked it for 6 years and went independent in 1973 with a second-hand service van and a customer list. He had built 1 completed job at a time in the way a customer list gets built when the person building it shows up when he says he will and does not need to be told anything twice. He ran his own operation for 29 years. Here is what 3 seconds of a handshake in a hotel lobby in April of 1965 became. 29 years of an independent vac business on the east side of Fort Worth. His son Kevin came into the operation in 1999 and learned it the way Eddie had learned everything he knew how to do, which was by watching someone who had been doing the necessary thing long enough that the doing of it was the instruction. Between Eddie and Kevin, the Marsh business has been running continuously in the Stockyards neighborhood for over 50 years, on streets where Eddie's mother lived when he started, and where his name means something specific in the context of arriving on time and leaving the job right. Between the GI Bill money and the 18 months of school, and the 6 years with the contractor, and the 29 years of the independent operation, the 2 words said in a hotel lobby produced a working life that kept the heat running in other people's houses for 3 decades in the neighborhood, where Eddie Marsh came home from the Central Highlands in August of 1964 and needed somewhere to go and something necessary to carry. That is the arithmetic the morning made, not the 6 seconds of it, but the 29 years the 6 seconds preserved. A young man standing in a lobby with ice tongs in his hand, who needed one person to stand up from a corner table and walk across a marble floor. And who got that person, and who went back to work and built everything that followed from the same steadiness he had brought to every shift at the Hotel Texas, and every mission in the Central Highlands, and everything that had been necessary before and after. Before Wayne left for the press luncheon, he stopped at the front desk and left an envelope for Eddie Marsh. Inside was a card from his production office. On the back, in Wayne's handwriting, 4 words, "You carry it right." Eddie found it in his jacket pocket at the end of the afternoon shift, read it once, put it back, and rode the bus home and showed it to no one that night. The card is framed on the wall of the Marshvac office on East Rosedale Street in Fort Worth, to the left of the scheduling whiteboard on the south wall, where the afternoon light reaches it for about 30 minutes every day before the angle changes and it moves on. 4 words in handwriting that Kevin has had verified twice because people ask. Kevin's daughter knows the story, because Kevin told it to her when she was old enough to understand what the Central Highlands meant. The card is still legible. Nobody has moved it since Eddie put it there. If you find yourself on East Rosedale Street in Fort Worth, the shop is the one with the blue van out front and the sign above the door that has been repainted twice since 1973, but has never been moved. The card is on the south wall. The afternoon light finds it every day and then continues on. Some of you know what it means to be standing in the middle of a floor with something in your hands while a room decides whether to be the room or not. Some of you know what it meant when one person stood up. This story belongs to you. John Wayne never told anyone about the Tuesday morning at the Hotel Texas. Not in any interview in the years that followed when people asked him what courage looked like in an ordinary life. Not in any statement about veterans or service, or what he believed about the men who had done what he had spent his career portraying. Not in any letter that has been found. The bartender told the concierge manager that evening. The manager told his wife. It moved in the direction that true things move, which is slowly and sideways through the people who were present and understood what they had witnessed. Carl Braddock retired from the professional circuit in 1971 and gave one interview to a regional sports publication in 1978 that asked him about the toughest man he had ever encountered across 11 years on the mat. He named a man from Kansas City who had worked the circuit in the late 50s. He did not name a corner table in Fort Worth. He was not asked to be specific about that question, and he was not volunteering. What a man communicates when he stands up from a corner table and walks across a marble floor is not contained in the 6 seconds at the end of it. It is in the decision to stand, which is made in about 4 seconds and requires nothing except the recognition that the room's collective decision is not binding, and that one person willing to move can revise the entire character of a morning. Wayne did not hurry. He did not raise his voice. He held out his hand in the ordinary gesture of introduction and applied to that gesture the full accumulated weight of 36 years of living a physical and purposeful life. And then he said 8 words and walked back to his table and found the page. Eddie Marsh went and got the ice. He has been carrying things right ever since. Subscribe if this story deserves to be told. There are more of them, and every one of them does. And unfortunately, they don't make men like John Wayne anymore.